Hi, my name is Ben Dillon, and I am the director and producer of the film Broken. When I first learned about this project, I was worried about the challenges it would face me with and the obstacles that it provided, as a student and with my personal life. These so-called challenges I quickly learned was part of the learning experience, and in hindsight, problem solving and coming up with innovative ways to improve my project was the most enjoyable part of this assignment for me. This project came with many struggles and hardships along the way, but I am happy to say that I love the way my final cut came out, and I can say that I am confident with the work that I have provided and the results that I have worked so hard to create. The narrative of my film, called Broken, is about a young boy who recently had his heart broken by a girl who he was in love with. The boy gains an unhealthy habit of alcohol abuse, and it leads him to making a decision he will regret for the rest of his life. The reason I went with this topic is because it is something I see in the real world every day. As a student in high school, I witness people on a daily basis begin to explore their interest in finding a partner in their life. Unfortunately, more often than not, these relationships never last and lead to a lot of these people developing unhealthy and dangerous habits such as the use of alcohol or other substances. As I mentioned in many blog posts, a huge reason I picked this topic was because I have always felt that a good film connects with its audience. And I felt that this was the perfect topic because it is something everybody has either gone through or witnessed people go through, and the audience can relate with what is on screen to what has happened in their personal experiences. Other people dealing with the same or similar problem can relate to what is happening in their life, and somehow my production could change the route they take in their personal endeavors. The lesson to be learned in my film is that driving while intoxicated can be lethal and kills one person every 52 minutes in the USA. The connection between my production and the audience was what I primarily focused on through the entire planning period of my film. As I mentioned before, almost everybody has been through a difficult breakup, and in my film, with the breakup being the central focus and root point of my character's problems, this was a huge point of relation between my character and the audience. Every time you see a romance movie, it always focuses on key points of the character's relationship that the audience can relate to. This is the atmosphere that I tried to create in my film. This is what I was counting on to be a focal point of advertisement for my film. The distribution techniques I could use was creating a movie trailer with a lot of emotion and try to appeal to the audience in specific ways, whether that be the storyline, cinematography, or even the actors. When I started this project, I was rather clueless on what I wanted to do. I struggled with ideas and I had no clue what I wanted to do. After the first stage of doing research, I started to learn how other filmmakers would do certain things, and I realized how I needed to improvise with what I had to try and recreate so many of the aspects that make these large-scale productions so enjoyable. My all-time favorite part of the production process was learning about why certain filmmakers do certain things depending on what their narrative is about, and how they use that to their advantage to improve their film in so many ways. This research carried on into post-production. During editing, I realized that because my storyline was more slow-paced, sad, and lonely, I had to slow down the production in any way I could. The music was slow-paced, the transitions were slow, the acting was sluggish, and so much more. What I learned most about filmmaking is how much thought goes into the slightest details. When watching movies, I never realized that the lighting, costuming, and set plays such a role on how your mind perceives the emotion and feeling of a production. Coming out of this project, I feel like I know much more about cinematography and filmmaking. I think this project was a great way to tone and improve my skills, and learning on my own was a great opportunity for myself. I would say the thing I learned most from would be other filmmakers. I watched other films with similar conventional techniques, and I learned a lot about how they get their point across, which camera angle is the best for which shot. If I were to carry on this production, I would definitely bank on the rehabilitation process of my character and the relationship between the main character and his mystery lover. My film was filmed and edited on my iPhone 11. The software I used was iMovie, and I was very happy with the way I utilized this application. I used the editing software to incorporate sound effects and transitions I could adjust the length on, and even add a bit of color into my film. A problem I had with the phone was that most of my scenes were dark, and the camera did not react well to that. You can see in my final cut that the shots were very pixelated. As far as equipment goes, I did not use any fancy gimbals or dollies. All of my shots were handheld. I used different features of my editing software. I played around with sound more than anything. I found the specific sounds that I wanted off YouTube, and I edited them into my film with a couple adjustments to volume and placement. I loved the way they turned out. The reason I used more soft sounds for the majority of the film was because I wanted the car crash to stand out and be significant in my film, so I figured if that was the loudest and brightest scene, it would be a quick change of pace and catch the viewer's attention. Let's dive into a quick dissection of my movie. This scene depicts the main character waking up from an alcohol-induced sleep and checking his phone, which he's clearly unhappy with what he sees because the following action was him drinking from his alcoholic beverage. In this scene, I used my iPhone to create a setting of discomfort from the character and highlight his emotional state of a sad and disappointed feeling. I played the sad music over the clip, but I left the sound of the original clip playing under the soundtrack. I did this because I felt that without the original sound, it was too focused on the soundtrack, and the original sound adds to what the character is doing in this scene. Some of the sounds you hear are the clinking of the ice against the cup and the sound of rustling on the couch. This scene was important to the storyline because it really opened up that atmosphere of the character's feelings and why he decided to run away from it all with a late-night drive. This scene also gave the audience the backstory as to why he was upset. This next scene is the character getting in the car. I heavily relied on my brother's acting skills for this shot. I wanted him to give the audience the impression of how upset the character really was, and I think he did a wonderful job. The first thing I noticed when watching this scene is the lighting. I wasn't overly keen on the lighting of this shot. However, the more I watched it, the more I realized it highlighted the character's emotions and added to the monotone feeling of the scene. I also added the top of an alcoholic bottle to show that it was old and the character had been suffering with this for a while now. This scene was mainly recorded by propping my phone up against the windshield of my brother's car and positioning the camera to my liking. This was the biggest scene of my film, the scene where the character crashes into another car. The message from this scene is the danger that drinking while driving causes. The first thing I did with this was make it dark again. The darkened scene with just a partial part of my actor's face in the clip was an amazing portrayal of emotion in my opinion. I wanted this clip to stand out, so I had everything happen really quickly. The change of pace to then the slowing down reminds me of the heartbeat and rush you get from a horror movie. I had to improvise to show the effect the crash had on my character, so I faded it out into a black screen and utilized sound effects to play the sirens and the heartbeat monitor sound effects. Now I will ask my family some questions about what they think about the movie and the message it portrays. What do you think about my film and the message it portrays?
I think it's a very good film, and it shows the dangers of drinking and driving under the influence, which is a very important message to portray these days.
What do you think about my opening sequence and the message it portrays?
I think it's exceptionally good. It needs to be known. People need to take more notice about drinking and driving. It just doesn't work. It just does not work. It's got to be stopped.
Over the course of the past few months, I put together an opening sequence of a film about the dangers of drinking and driving. The film was about a young boy who recently got broken up with by a girl he loved. This film is a sad production, and it is meant to use its outreach to connect with the viewers and allow them to relate to the film on a personal level. During the production of this film, I have learned many things about the process of creating a film. I learned the importance of each individual aspect, coming down to sound and lighting. I created this film using my iPhone 11 and an editing software called iMovie. Throughout this journey, I have ran into many significant problems and got stumped many times along the way. In all my blog posts, you can read about the solutions to these problems and why I did everything that I did. My goal when creating this project was to have a reason for everything. I wanted everything to be in a certain place for a certain reason. Looking back on it, I would say I did a very good job at adapting to what I had, and my final cut came out almost exactly what I envisioned. I was happy with everything that came out of my production. If I had to criticize one part of my filmmaking techniques, it would definitely be my time management. I will admit I have always been a bit of a procrastinator. However, this project, I had all of my planning done and was ready to start filming. As I started filming, I quickly realized the difficulty of making the time limit of this project. My film was supposed to be between 1 minute and 40 to 2 minutes of footage. However, I only made 1 minute and 20 after my first cut. I quickly added some establishing shots and extra footage to work myself up to 140. I was not impressed with myself because of the fact that after having to lengthen some shots, I realized it was almost too slow-paced for my liking. However, I tried to make it look purposeful and add suspense. I also occasionally found myself having trouble finding material for blog posts. My filming process was short, so I did not have much to write about, and I ended up realizing that I did not have much material to write about. The post-production was another favorite of mine. I really enjoyed playing with the different aspects of editing software to make my film look more professional and enjoyable. As much as I wanted to get a good grade on this project, I really did have fun making my film and learning what it's like to be a filmmaker.